Welcome to the Run for God Run Club, where you will find God in a runner's space.
Welcome to the Run for God Run Club. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the running trail, where you can in turn inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and leap into running together, giving God the glory for what we are able to do in His name. Amen. I am your running host, Dean Thompson. Well, we have a special treat for you today. It's probably a bigger treat for me, honestly, than it is for you, but I hope that you do find it intriguing. You've heard Mitchell and I talk about Coach Richard Westbrook several times over the past 3 years as we've done this podcast. If you've listened before, well, he is here today, and we're going to get into some accomplishments along the way. But Coach Westbrook was my cross-country and track coach back when I was in high school, back in the early 80s. And he, quite frankly, probably did more to help mold me into who I am today, good or bad, than more than anybody except maybe God and my mother. So he has essentially retired from coaching at this point, but still in a kind of an unofficial way helps with the Tryon cross country team, which is his old hometown and his high school from more than just a couple of years ago. Yeah. And he is with us here. So please welcome Coach Westbrook. Welcome to Cohutta.
I think I'm glad to be here.
It's a great place.
In Cohutta. No, really, I like the place. It's similar to Tryon, so I like the feel and the size and the look of the place.
If you can just find it.
Yeah.
That was the main thing.
It took me a while. I took one wrong turn, didn't know where I was going, but figured out I was going the wrong way and had to double back, find the right road, and here I am.
It's all good. We like it here. All right. Well, we're going to do this podcast a little bit differently. We're going to do this kind of as a more of an interview type thing, sort of like we did with Alan Webb, rather than our normal sharing main stories. But we're going to share some great stories, I'm sure. Before we get to that, let me talk about our sponsor of this week. It is Ken's Car Star. They feature state-of-the-art unibody and frame repair equipment, expert painting, towing assistance, vehicle pickup and delivery, and a nationwide warranty in a clean, inviting environment. We've repaired more than 4 million vehicles since 1989. That's why more people choose CarStar Auto Body Repair Experts for their vehicle repair needs than any other body shop. Call Ken's CarStar and schedule a free estimate today. CarStar is all over the country. We've got our local guys here. I think they have 4 local shops now. So they continue to grow, and it's because they do such a great job. So if you have the opportunity, go see them at Ken's CarStar. All right, we don't have a Facebook post or a trivia question this week. We will have 2 trivia answers next week, though, because we're going to go over a trivia question this week. So that'll be fun. So, Coach, let's talk about your family. I feel like I'm part of the family at times, and I just because I feel like I grew up with your family, and it's cool to see them growing up. So tell us about your family.
Yeah, you were close because you were just a couple of blocks away.
Yeah.
So no matter how much we tried to hide from you, you kept showing up. But seriously, no, I kind of feel the same way. And the family, I have my wife is at home recuperating from an operation on her foot, which looks like Frankenstein monster's foot right now. Had stitches all in it and everything, but she's tough and she's hanging in there, and it's actually getting better right now. She's up and around, and I don't have to do quite as much for her as I did when she was down a little bit more.
Kind of a reversal of fortune there.
Yeah. And she's glad to be up and moving around, because the longer she lays down and be off her foot, the crankier she gets. And I'm glad she's up and around. So that's the way that works.
Good thing you never get cranky.
No, I'm sure I don't. She just kind of says, "Oh," that's her response when I get back, and then turns away. And I know I better clean up my act. And then we have locally there in Tryon, my daughter is there with her daughter, granddaughter for us. Braylee is her name. She's a 9th grader. She does some running. when I can get her out the door and away from her iPad. It runs well when that happens. I'm just trying to get her going more now than she has been lately. She runs at school a couple of times a week, and I try to fill in the other days. And she has a school race coming up in which they pick a team to run. I think the first race is in Ringo.
Yeah. Cool.
With an elementary cross-country day there of some sort.
Cool.
Their grades
Season
will run
has
there.
Braley, but you don't call her Braley.
Call her Rainbow
Yeah,
first.
I'm not even sure if I realized what her real name was.
Yeah, I just start talking about her sometime, and people say, well, wait a minute. Now, I know Season has Brady, but who in the heck is Rainbow? I say, oh, okay, I have to explain that. I just kind of forget about that.
Yeah.
Everybody should know that, but it doesn't. Because that's the first thing I thought of when I first saw her little face and smiling. But now she's getting a little precocious, and that Rainbow name may have to disappear to Groucho or something.
At 9 years old, it's bound to happen.
Yeah, it does. I expected that. She's kind of taken after her mother.
So other kids?
Yeah, I have a daughter, Wendy, which is the older daughter. She lives south of Atlanta. She's got a family down there, and she got 2 kids that are in their teens or entering their teens.
Yeah.
And well-placed family, a good Christian family down there. And then I have an older son, Shane, who's the oldest, and he is living down fairly close to us near Jonesboro and taking care of his life and working. And we had a younger son, Casey, that unfortunately died a few years ago, who was a burgeoning artist.
Yeah.
And that was unfortunate, but think about Casey every day.
Yeah. He did some pretty cool things on movie sets, right?
Yes,
he
did.
Part of what he did was he was involved in movie sets.
Yeah.
Some pretty cool stuff. Well, Tryon, like you mentioned, is a lot like Cohutta. It's a little tiny small town, right?
Yep, small town, but it has a cotton mill, and I don't think Cohutta does.
No cotton mill, no. But we have the Cohutta General Store and the Red Wolf Grill.
Well, there you go.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
That's Americana right there.
Yeah. So you're still an ultra marathoner, I guess you'd call yourself, right?
I've been called a lot of other things, some good, some bad, but yeah, that's when I think about racing and a racing schedule, that tends to be ultra marathons. Even though I haven't done any racing in the last couple of years, I don't know if it was because of the pandemic or just because I'm older or because my wife is giving me too much to do. But
do you plan on getting back to it?
I'm working on it, and my mileage is coming back up.
Yeah.
And
so how many miles a week? If you're preparing, the Vol State 500K is a over 300-mile race.
Yeah, 315 miles. That's my favorite race.
So in the days, in the months leading up to that, how many miles a week do you run?
Well, I kind of gauge it from the January the 1st and pure preparation for that. And the average mileage per week attained during January would be 90 to 100 miles a week. And then that would pull back down to way below 50 to 30 miles a week or so in the last couple of weeks before Ball State happens.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's all ultra marathon running, which kind of fits me because it's slow and easy.
Well, I remember doing long runs back when I was in high school. I remember when we used to run we would start, I guess, locally, and then we would run to some town 15, 20 miles away. We usually did it over the Christmas holidays, if I remember, every year.
Yeah.
So do you remember those?
Our other holidays that were extensive enough that we get the run in and still have other days to do your own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those. That was a staple of the program.
Yeah. Yeah. There weren't enough. We usually could all come home in one vehicle. So in a van, so there weren't a ton of folks that would do it, but it was always fun. But we would run and we'd have rallying points. I remember we'd kind of group back up and then we'd go again, and we'd rally one last time about 3 miles from the finish line, and then that last 3 miles, I would just try to hammer that last 3 miles. And sometimes you were pushing me hard on those last few miles. I remember. So how did you get started coaching?
I was at Austin Peay State University up in Clarksville, Tennessee, being a physical education major. Went there with the pure purpose of becoming a football coach, which changed after my first year. And I was on the football team during that first year, but I was being knocked around like I don't know what. So I figured maybe there's a better way to do this. But actually I was taking courses in educational courses in physical education in the education department, and learning about physical fitness, and finding out that what I thought about football fitness didn't really compare to life fitness. And that aerobic running and distance running would prepare one for a longer lifespan than the kinetic energy in football would prepare one for. That would only prepare you to hit somebody else and knock them down. And this took care of the internal system better. So the more I learned, the more I was impressed with it. And about that time, Ken Cooper's aerobics book came out, which transformed the U.S. into a society that was finally getting out and getting on their feet and knowing how much to do and how hard to do it. So it answered a lot of questions, and it answered a lot of questions from me. And that just kind of gave me information to use and build upon. But before that, I was just going out and running around, not knowing how much I needed to do. But the more I ran, the better I felt. And I lost all that football weight I had, which was up to about almost 200 pounds. And that happened in 1/4 of the school session, since Austin Peay was on the quarter system. So people that knew me and had classes with and came back for the next quarter saw me and thought I had some disease or something because I'd lost so much weight. But told them what I was doing. They thought I was crazy, but it all worked out.
But then since you like to run, you just thought, well, this coaching this cross country and track stuff seems like a more fun thing. And you were having impact on other people's lives, I guess. At that point,
I was one of the football players there, who was a split in on the football team, had gotten, and a couple of years ahead of me in school, had gotten an assistantship there and became one of the coaches in track, which he did track, but he did jumping events. And then he was still there as I came up, and I also got an assistantship, and I was running a lot. Then he asked me I have to know something about distance running, which he didn't know anything about. Would I come out and tell him something to do, even if it was wrong? Because what he told him was definitely wrong. So that started me into coaching there and became part of my assistantship. And then after that, after I got through with the program there, went on into high school coaching in Florida, matter of fact.
And being a cross-country coach isn't too hard because nobody else wants to do it, I've noticed.
That's true, and that's what happened at Austin Peay. We met in cross-country, and he was telling this guy here is going to help us with the program. And a lot of them knew me because I was there as just a graduate assistant. I was just like a student almost, except maybe a year or two older than some of them. So they just shifted their gaze at me like, well, he's going to tell us what to do. And I did, and he backed it up. And the first race we had in Nashville at Percy Warner Park, every runner but one set PRs that they had since they've been there, and that convinced them that, wait, well, he might know what he's talking about. And so they were all on board after that. And then the guy that didn't set the PR had turned his ankle getting off the bus. So he ran and finished. So I said, wait, no, that happens, I guess.
So do you have like kind of a general philosophy on coaching, training, or is it just kind of a mixture and hodgepodge of different philosophies of others? Or
yeah, I walk out to the practice sessions and whatever comes into my head is what I give them that day. No, seriously. I know a lot of coaches that do that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they just make it up as they're walking out of the building to the field. But the programs, the practice sessions they give the runners are planned weeks and days and weeks ahead of time, even though a lot of them change day to day.
Yeah.
Depending upon how the runners feel, especially high school kids. I'd have to let them run around and play grab butt with each other, messing around at the beginning, and that kind of gives me a gauge on how they feel. Mm-hmm. And if Johnny's over there and he's just watching, not paying any attention, not goofing around, probably doesn't feel too well that day, had a bad day at school and class, so his workout might change a little bit. Mm-hmm. The others, put them out there with the planned workout and everything goes right, so I have to gauge it day by day.
Yeah.
But the workouts in general are planned for that part of the season and what they've done previously.
Yeah. Well, what about, we have a lot of folks that watch, listen to this podcast, and there's some people, and when you coach people, we get the same kind of person. You get an athlete who says, or feels like they can't do something, but you've watched them. You know they can do more than they think they can do. How do you get that person to understand they can do more than they think they can do?
Yeah, I've had a couple of those, especially when I was in Florida. And I had been coaching there a couple of years, and then these two guys showed up for the team, and they'd run in middle school, well, junior high school at that point down there, and they did okay. And I had recruited them because I knew they could run better. But they still came into the program, and they would just run along. Their easy run was just a fat person jog. I mean, they took easy to the extreme, and they would not push the red line and push it over and put in more effort. And I knew they could run a lot better than they have. So we would give the workouts, or I would give the workouts to the group, but I would move those two out and say, you two stand right over there. Mike and Steve, just stand right over there. And they would wonder, oh, why am I over here? What's wrong? Oh, I guess I'm going to get a better workout or something. And then I'd give them, this group over here, and workout, and maybe 4 800s around the field and so forth, and timed with interval. And you two guys over there, just jog around the building, come back and have a seat. So I was trying to get them to the point where they wanted to do more, and I figured out the best way to do that was give them less. And after a few days of just, Coach, why am I over here? Well, guys, every time I tell you to do a workout, you're behind all the girls' team. I mean, then you should be way ahead. So I figured that's all you could do. So just go back over there and have a seat. And then, okay, you guys jog around the field again, come back and have a seat. And then their parents showed up. Or one said Mike's parents showed up. Wanted to know, said they were complaining about the program and what was going on, because he had been a pretty good runner in middle or junior high school, and what's going on now. And I told them the whole thing, and they said, oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that kind of attitude of theirs at home. I might have to try to work this out at home, too. I said, well, good luck with that, because they may take it all the way to the barn on that one. You give them less to do at home, they may, oh, okay, that's great. So anyway.
That's a good story. Oh,
that turned them around, and they started working harder, and they were number 1 and 2, and one of them was the state champion.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I know there's 3 guys just from the team that I was on in high school that are coaches today. Me and Alan Drosky's the head coach at Georgia Tech, and then Randy Ashley coaches in Asheville, North Carolina. Do you have any idea how many coaches you've coached over the years?
No, I don't.
It's got to be a pretty high number, though.
Every once in a while, I'll get a notice or something from somebody that says, hey, I'm coaching now. I've been coaching for 10 years or whatever, and just wanted to thank you. Or they'll ask me a question about what to do with people.
Yeah.
Like the example I just gave. And so I don't know how many of them there are out there.
It's funny. I've had conversations with Randy in particular about kind of training philosophy and stuff like that. Not a ton of conversation, but he would bring up, well, you remember what we used to do, when we were in high school. You remember what Rich had us do, and so you still get referenced in those conversations. I remember one story in particular that happened, and I don't know if I'm sure you remember it, but
I wouldn't be too sure about that since my memory is escaping me every day.
But this is probably the incident that probably gave me more respect for you than anything. And I try, honestly, in my own coaching to kind of model it a little bit. But you were running a 50-miler around Stone Mountain. And I think it was 10 laps around Stone Mountain.
Yeah.
And I ran a 20K that day. I ran really, really well on that 20K. But we were kind of hanging around, just kind of cheering for you as you were continuing to run after we were done. And I remember running the last 5 miles with you. And as I was running those last 5 miles with you, you were struggling. You'd gone really well for the first 35 miles and then started to fade a little bit. And then you were in second place, and then the third place guy passed you with, I don't know, maybe a mile and a half left in the race. And you just looked up at him, you saw him pass you, and you just kind of waved at him like, nothing I can do about that. And then it's like something clicked, and you decided, there's something I can do about that. I don't know if it was the fact that you had one of your runners running next to you. You didn't want him to see you give up or what it was, but all of a sudden you just said, okay, I'm going to take off. And I had a hard time keeping up with you for that last mile of that 50-miler. I remember that. And I remember the guy he made you mad because he made some comment while we were running. And I finally I said, well, okay, I don't want to get in the way. I got off the road and ran in the grass so I wasn't in the way. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
That was, I just remember, I was like, I couldn't believe you ran that fast at the end of a 50-miler like that. Was that just an adrenaline thing, or?
Well, yeah, the guy was from Athens, I do believe. And he said, as we had been against each other in some other races, and he came by and said something about, well, I see your training's not paying off, or something like that. Oh. And we had talked before, a friendly sort of way, after some other races, about his type of training compared to my type of training. Mine was based on longer miles, high mileage, running slower, easier effort with just speed work, or faster effort work built into those runs in places. His was based a lot on intervals, mile repeats, 2-mile repeats. I think he also did some 3-mile repeats. And he did those on the road that marked around the Athens area. But he would always be joshing around saying his type of training was better than my type of training. And I said, well, yeah, maybe so. But anyway, he comes by and he give some kind of reference to that, like your training's not paying off so much, huh? And then, like I said, he moved on out, had a better cadence than I had. And I thought about it and said, well, he can't feel that much better than I do. So I just started cranking up and going after him. And I was getting closer and said, yeah, I'm going to get that guy. Yeah. I knew I was going to get him because he could hear me back there. But his cadence wasn't getting any better. So I knew he wasn't going to get any better.
Yeah.
So I got closer and closer and closer, then went by him and didn't say a word. And that felt good.
Yeah.
Took it all the way in. So that was, you were in that area.
And I remember when you finished, I looked back, he was nowhere to be found. I mean, he wasn't even in sight. By the time you finished, that was only a mile into it. So, yeah, that was a pretty impressive day and a good lesson to me. As a matter of fact, I had a race that was almost similar where I was behind a guy. It was the Dalton Red Carpet Half Marathon. I was behind a guy, and I was telling myself the same thing. It was like, you never know how bad he's feeling. And we were a mile from the finish line, and I wound up winning that race too. And it would just wound up being one of those things where things work out.
In that case, especially in your abilities, you probably or should have been thinking, well, there's not many people out here that can actually run a mile faster than I can. And if you're only a mile from the finish, you could hammer that knowledge into them. I wonder what kind of kick he's got. I kept running through my head. Yeah. Anyway, what motivates you to keep running? Well, I like to do it for one thing. It makes me feel good. It calms my brain down. So when I get angry at everything, I know it's hard to believe that I do get angry, but I can come back a different person and forget about insignificant things that I now know are insignificant after running. And it just makes the whole day better. So if it works on one day, I figured it's going to work on every day. And after running for consecutive days, then I found out that I had a streak going. I found out that people actually kept up with a streak. I didn't know they did.
Do you struggle with motivation to exercise? Are you looking for something that will challenge you and inspire and motivate you? The Run for God Run Club is just what you need to get off the couch and on your way to a fitter, healthier you. Stop trying to get into better shape and do it with the help and inspiration of thousands of others who are going through the same challenges you face. Whether you are participating in the Couch to Marathon Challenge or any of our other challenges, or you're just looking for a daily pick-me-up to get active, join the Run for God Run Club today. You can join for as little as 27 cents a day. So what are you waiting for? Get started today at runforgod.com.
All right, so you mentioned that the big elephant in the room, we've talked about it on our podcast before, this streak that you've got, which is approaching 50 years. It'll be running every day for 50 years as of, the end of December or beginning of January?
Near the end of December.
Like the 27th?
27th.
Yeah.
Is the next day would start another year.
Right. So you run at least, the rules are you have to run at least a mile a day, every day. And you started, here's the way, when you say to somebody, I know this guy who's run every day for almost 50 years, that sounds impressive, but there's one thing that I always say that makes it sound even more impressive. I said, the last day he didn't run, Richard Nixon was president. and when you say it that way, it really drives the point home. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, that impresses me. Couldn't think of it in that terms. Yeah. So a historical fact there.
So you just kind of found out about the streak after you had started the streak.
Yeah, I had started that few days there in December, last few days, and it looked on the calendar, and I was recording what I ran on a calendar, little blocks, and then write down the mileage. And then I said, well, got a new year here. And after a few days of running, I'd come back to the calendar and put the mileage down and little notes and so forth. That was a running log of sort at that time. And then I said, well, I wonder if I can fulfill the whole month, run up to my birthday on the 26th of January, make it that far. And then I got there and I said, I might as well go the whole month. I wonder if I can do February. And then after February, I said, heck, I'm going to see if I can do the whole year. And took a little struggle here and there because I just weren't really tuned into that, hadn't thought about it before until then. But as it got more and more days behind me, I didn't want to waste them. So I probably ran some when I shouldn't have, just to make sure I did it. Those were like mile days. And
so how many days over these 50 years have you run just 1 mile, would you think?
There's very few.
Yeah.
I don't know how many.
But probably less than a handful a year.
Yeah.
There'd
have to be something wrong. Well, I haven't been injured much at all. Haven't been sick much at all either.
You had a back problem, though, one time that really gave you fits for a little while, didn't it?
It did, yeah. And those were mile per day days.
Yeah.
And they struggled. And but mentioning that, I think the running helped the back problem heal faster. The doctor gave me 2 to 3 weeks to get over it, and after a week, I was fine.
Oh.
And he said, "What? Wait a minute. What'd you do? Get on some kind of a stretching program or something?" I said, "Well, I stretched what I could after I run, but wait, you mean been running during this time?" And I said, "Yeah, it hurt, but I ran." Oh, well, okay. That's one for the books. So maybe the running, that's the only variable that he didn't count on, might have helped out.
It's something I've said over and over again to people is I really think that there's times when I'm hurting and I feel semi-injured or a minor injury, I guess you'd call it. And I feel like running is therapeutic for it. I think it's better to run than to not run.
Yeah, and I think you can feel that.
Yeah.
The body's designed to run.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're upright.
Mm-hmm.
That's why our muscles have long attachments in the legs to help propel us forward and keep us upright and balanced. And I think it's maybe an evolutionary thing.
So I've told people on this podcast that I remember running 3 miles in the Atlanta airport one time because it was the only time I had to get a run in that day. So
yeah.
What is the strangest place that you have had to run in order to get a run in? I've
also run inside at the Atlanta airport. I can't really remember why. Either the weather was bad outside and I was there waiting on someone or whatever, but I figured I would do that. I just remember people looking at me and wondering, or probably thinking, well, that guy's in a hurry. He's about to miss his plane or something. And so that may be one of the oddest places I've run.
Yeah.
I've run some in gyms when the weather has been really, really terrible.
Yeah.
Many, many laps around the basketball floors, which is...
That'll get you dizzy.
Yeah, well, it'd drive you crazy. I'd have to turn around and go the other way. I guess that's about it. Because usually I get outside, no matter how bad the weather is. I kind of think of it as a challenge that the weather's not going to stop me.
Yeah.
So I'll put on everything I have and go out and run in the rain. I've run in Florida. I run in hurricane weather, and that was different. I remember running down the road and taking a left that goes along Highway 98 toward Panama City and parallels the coast. And as soon as I turned that corner, that wind hit me like a wall. So I turned around the other way.
Let it help you.
That was easier, but I got 6 miles in.
Oh, my goodness.
And the rain and wind was just blowing me everywhere.
Well, and I've told the story on here before that I run every day but one for the last 12 years. And, obviously.
Now, why was that one not run?
Have I never told you that story?
Why that one? No.
Yeah. Well, I had the flu one week, and it was bad. It was one of those that and I would go downstairs on my treadmill. I'd run a mile on the treadmill, and then I'd sit on the side of the treadmill for 20 minutes trying to recover because I felt so bad just trying to run a mile. But I ran that mile, and so I got through that whole week. And by Saturday, I was feeling pretty normal. So Saturday, I went out for a 6-mile run. Felt okay, a little weak, but okay. Monday morning at 4:00 in the morning, I woke up and went, oh my gosh, I forgot to run yesterday. I forgot to run on Sunday. I was working out in the yard, doing other stuff. It's not like I didn't have time. I just forgot to run. And so here I am, I'm laying in bed at 4:00 in the morning. I'm thinking, okay, how do I fix this? Right. And because there's nothing you can do. It's gone. The day is gone. There's nothing you can do to go back and reverse time.
Don't have a time machine. So
I'm getting mad at myself, right? And I'm thinking, why in the world? Well, so I finally laid there and I thought, okay, God, what are you trying to tell me? And here's what I feel like God told me this plain and clear. I feel like God said, I know sometimes you feel like maybe you're a little too obsessed, like maybe running is an idol to you. And this is my way of telling you that just run. You love running. Just go out there and do it and enjoy it and quit worrying about whether or not you think I know I'm more important than it is. And it was so clear. And so that one day is actually a really good day for me. And I tell people this, there's a lot of people who have run every day for the last 12 years. But I may be the only person who's run every day but one in the past 12 years.
Yeah, that's a whole classification by itself.
That's right. That's right.
Which makes you kind of special, doesn't it?
That's right. That's right. So how long do you think you can go?
As long as I'm breathing, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel good. Nothing hurts. I'm slower. I probably will get slower.
76 now? Is that right?
76.
Okay.
We have a birthday in January.
Okay.
As long as I feel good and it's not hurting me and the hurt carries over for days and days and days and days, I guess I'll just keep on going.
Yeah.
I like the movement.
So you never get to the point. I remember when I was in high school, I ran every day for the last 2.5 years of my high school running. And I remember just getting to the point where I wanted that streak to be over because it felt like a burden after a while, right?
Yep.
And I remember days of it's 11:30 at night and I still haven't run and, and running at 11:30 at night. And it just became a burden and I wanted to end it. Have you ever gotten to that point?
Yeah, I have. Sarah, I was running a lot of miles at a lot of days before I really realized that a streak is being formed. I was just going out there and running, not even thinking about a streak. Didn't even know about streaking. And till I read about it and found out about it and saying, well, maybe I could do that. And then after I realized now I'm running and making a point to keep the streak going, it became a burden.
Right.
Because I was running for a different reason than just going out and running and because I liked it.
Yeah.
So I had to work myself out of that. And my first thought was, well, I just won't run tomorrow and got to get that solved. But when tomorrow came, I got up and ran. And I was out in the run before I wasn't going to run today. So that told me that maybe I wasn't putting as much weight on the streaking as I thought I was. Maybe I was just thinking about it more.
Yeah.
And I think that was the case because after that realization, then the streak was there. It was there. Okay. If it's not there, that's okay. I'll just keep running and marking it on the calendar and realize, okay, another year's gone by. Then finding out about the streak organization, finally submitted my information to them and got recognized. And
and you're 5th right now on the list.
Last time
right?
I looked,
Yeah, I looked at it just this past week. You're still number 5 right now, unless somebody hasn't run in the last few days. Of those 4 that are ahead of you, the guy that you're at 49.8 years. The guy that's leading is at 54.4 years, and there's not a whole lot you can do but just try to outlast them, right?
I guess so.
And I noticed of those 4 guys, 3 of them are younger than you are. So that was a surprise to me when I saw that. I figured I would see, some 80-year-old guys.
Yeah, like dinosaurs like me.
But
we'll see if this dinosaur can hang in there longer than I can. I don't know.
I like your chances. And if you think running every day for 12 years is a long time, I mean, I guess it is. But there would be, if I was on that list, which I can't be because I missed a day, but if I was on that list, there would be over 300 people ahead of me that have been more than 12 years. So there's a lot of folks doing the streak. And those are just the ones that are on the list.
Yeah.
You have to voluntarily put yourself on that list.
Yeah, you have to enter your name into the mix and see if it's recognized and go and then get on these people out there like I didn't even know the list existed.
Yeah.
And I just found out about it. I can't remember how I found out about it. Read that there was a
there is an official list out there.
an international organization that keeps up with it, and then the national part of that.
And they're serious about it too, because I remember because you had over 30 years in before you ever got your name on the list, and so they researched to make sure that that was a legitimate 30-something years, that somebody wasn't just coming out of the blue and going, "Hey, I've run every day for 30." Somebody could do that, right?
I thought about that, yeah.
But they called me. Apparently, you gave them my name, or at least you must have given them several names. And I remember them calling me and saying, "How do you know that he's run every day, since such and such time?" And I remember telling them, "Are you kidding?" But yeah, so they're really good about checking up and at least doing a little bit of research to make sure somebody's not putting somebody on. So that's
I remember
impressive.
them asking me. I remember reading about it and thinking, well, shoot, I've done those these many days. I'll just enter my name. Thought that would be it, and then I get all this feedback from them that to verify this, verify that, a whole list of things, and one of them was name so many people. I forget how many it was.
Yeah.
Who could possibly verify? And I know I put your name on there because I think that was the first name I put on there.
Yeah.
That would know that this guy is crazy enough to do that. So they might have called the other 9 people or whatever.
It's so interesting to think that kind of consistency, and just frankly the luck as well, right? You got to you got to be fortunate.
Yes.
To have not, had to spend a day in the hospital and not been able to get up and out of the bed.
That's true.
In all those years.
I did, actually.
Well, and didn't you have like a bunch of stitches in your leg from a saw accident?
I had a cyst in the bottom of my tailbone.
Oh.
That's not even good to think about. I don't even want to say it. And it had to be cut out. So they had to cut a hunk of meat out to get down there and pull it out, and then pull everything right to left to the middle and stitch it up. And it was really tight and I had to be almost motionless so the stitches wouldn't pull the skin apart. So what did I do? Yeah.
You got up and ran.
What
did you do, in the hospital or something?
I was in the hospital. I put on my pants out of the closet, took the gown, stuffed it down in my pants so it looked like a shirt, and went down the hallway and down the steps and went outside. And this is the hospital in Clayton County, and did, I think it's almost 3.5 laps around their grounds to get a mile in. And went back up and peeked in the hallway to see if no nurses were coming around. And I think if they checked out if they checked my room when I was out, I'm in trouble. And I'll tell them I was in the bathroom. But then I'm sure they would check the bathroom, the restroom. But luckily, I guess nobody ever checked while I was, because it was nighttime. It was like
Picked
dark.
the right time.
Yeah. It was like past midnight, so it'd be the next day. I figured that'd be the best time to try it. And it hurt.
My goodness.
But I was in there 3 days, I think. So
Wow.
3 of those days were doing that. It was only because of the streak.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
Wow, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy.
But everything healed up okay, so I guess it was all right.
It's a fun, it's a fun story.
God said, well, you can do that, buddy. I'm with you.
Yeah.
But everything was okay.
Well, let's talk about another topic that is, I think, interesting to the folks that listen. Do you still drink Coke?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember years. I
don't shoot Coke in my arm. I drink Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola.
I'll get that straight.
Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and for many people that listen to this, people, and I'm sure you get these comments all the time, that's like drinking battery acid to some people, right?
Yeah.
To drink Coke.
That's the story out there.
And
Yeah.
you still drink Coke to this day.
Yeah.
And no ill effects, no problems. How much, I was convinced at one time that diet just wasn't all that important. And when I was in high school, I paid no attention to my diet at all.
Yeah, like most high school people
Yes,
do.
I just made sure I got lots of calories. I didn't do that, but but I paid no attention to what I ate. Never thought much about it. And I was always convinced it just didn't matter so much. And then a few years ago, we had a guy on our podcast, actually, as an emergency room doctor, and he was a plant-based eater. And we talked about his plant-based diet, and I thought, yeah, I need to try that. Well, I tried it, and I thought, well, you know how if you're going to try something, you got to do it for a period of time to see if it works. So I did it. I decided 30 days. Well, at the end of 30 days, I was like, the first couple of weeks weren't great. But after 30 days, I was like, I'm feeling pretty good. I feel more energized through the day. And I've been on a plant-based diet ever since. And that was over 3 years ago. And
With good results. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was 6 months after I started that. I ran a 1636 5K at 55 years old. And so it has been successful for me. Now, I'm not as strict on it as I was. I really need to get back to what I was doing. But do you think the plant-based diet is crazy, or what do you think?
No, I think
diet in general?
I think it's well based, and I kind of tend to look at things in a evolutionary way, because we're still here walking around, running around as humans because our ancestors survived, and most of those survived by eating plants, and because they weren't strong enough to kill big animals to feed the tribe or whatever, even though they had traps and hunting and stuff, all that. But most of the time it was plants that kept them going. And I'm sure that's one reason we're still here. So a plant-based diet fits into that evolutionary scenario. And if it was good then, it's got to be good now. And in fact, it may be better now with progress putting so much non-nutritional stuff in the foods we eat.
Yeah. So you drink Coke. What about the rest of your diet? Is it fairly natural? Is it?
It goes from a Coca-Cola to a Diet Coke, and maybe a Coke with some sugar in it, and Coke's got a bad rap, a lot of stuff, but Coke is actually a good aid in running when you're out there. If you can stop somewhere and get a Coke, and drink it, you're getting sugar in. You're going to use that sugar immediately because the body's wanting it.
Right.
If you've been out there for a few, half mile will do it. It's got to be a few more.
Yeah.
And the caffeine will actually trigger fat loss, fat usage while you're running longer. So then you're burning some sugar that you've used up. Then you tap into the sugar from the Coke, I would imagine, and then the caffeine has had time to work, and you start using fat that's on your body as energy, which is all a good thing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. So there's a lot of people who will blame, and I don't remember this being a thing when I was in high school. Maybe it's because we didn't know as much as we know today. But these high school kids these days, they'll run a minute slower than they should have run a race.
Yes.
And they'll say it's because of what I ate, or it's because I wasn't hydrated enough, or something like that. How crazy is that?
That's crazy enough to be what they think is true. But a lot of them just haven't explored all the facets of running to know that it's not true.
Yeah.
That they can train more. They can clean up their diet a little bit. They can quit eating that snack right before the race.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. And I see a lot of teams, as I'm helping with the Trine program, I see a lot of teams, and I see a lot of them eating immediately before the race, and I want to go over there and slap the stuff out of their hands and tell them not to do it, that you know, whatever you're eating now is not going to help you in the race. The only thing it can do is hurt you.
Right.
And but I don't do that, obviously. Yeah. But I guess the coaches aren't getting that information to the runners. I'm not even sure the coaches know. Well, I see some coaches handing out stuff right before the race. So it's a problem. Parents
are, I think, to blame a lot of times, because they think, well, we need something to eat. You're about to expend a lot of energy. You need energy.
That's true.
And so I think there's probably a lot of that going on.
I have seen parents at races, invitationals, handing out stuff to their runners, bananas especially. Yeah. Sometimes apples, which is a bad thing. Yeah. And so I'm sure that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's good intentions, but we all know about good intentions.
Yeah, good intentions and not backed up by the right knowledge.
That's it.
Would you like to experience the Bible in a different way than you've ever done before? Well, you can join me, Coach Dean, as I read through the entire Bible every day for a full year. You don't want to miss hearing this transplanted Southern boy try to pronounce those biblical names now, do you? It may be good for a laugh. In addition, I share running and walking tips and some inspirational quotes along the way. Get your daily dose of the Bible from a runner's perspective in the Run for God Run Club Walk Through the Bible. You must be a member of the Run Club to get access. So if you're not a member, join today. If you are a member, just find a Walk Through the Bible under the Nationwide Challenge tab.
All right, we're back. Let's talk about some specific things that I remember from back in my day. I remember one occasion where we were headed to, I want to say North Carolina, it could have been South Carolina, but we were headed to a regional junior Olympics race, and we had a bus full of kids that were headed that way, and I was goofing around on the bus. And you were driving the bus, and you had had enough. And so you pulled over on the side of the interstate, if I remember correctly, and you had me and somebody else do push-ups just about to the point where we were about to puke. Do you remember that day?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I think we were going to Furman. If not Furman, somewhere up in that area.
Okay. All right. I didn't.
Because they were hosting a lot of meets up there at that time.
Yeah. I remember running that race the next day and being so sore. Oh my gosh, I was sore.
Well, it carried over again. I'm glad. I'm glad. If it carries over, then you're probably going to remember it, which obviously you do.
Yeah. Well, I still ran pretty well that day.
Yeah, you did.
But
that's the thing about it. The push-ups, I've at one time I'd had people get out and run alongside the road if it wasn't an interstate or anything. Or there'd be a hill over there. I said, okay, you're going to have to get 5 repeats up that hill, 10, whatever. But then push-ups became easier, and I found out that the carryover stress from push-ups is almost nothing.
Huh.
And because once you start running and you get warmed up, and you could be sore here, you think, here, triceps, but once you start running,
it's all good.
It goes away. Unless you do like 5,000, it might not be.
Well, and I think I did just short of that.
yeah, 4,000's okay.
Well, I remember here not too long ago, when I was coaching at Dalton State, we went to a meet down in Gulf Shores, Alabama. And we ran the 5K, and then it started raining. It wouldn't stop lightning, and they finally just had to call the meet. And so we got in and we drove home. And on the way home, I thought, well, this is not right. We trained for a race. We were ready for a race, and we didn't get to run a race. So we stopped in LaGrange, Georgia, and found a high school track, and we ran a 1,500-meter race. Those that didn't get to run the 5K that morning got to run their 1,500-meter race. All but one of them ran a PR that day. And I'll never forget when that day came. It was they didn't want to do it.
Oh, obviously,
right?
Yeah.
You know that is, right? They didn't want to do it, and so I told them we're going to start at such and such time after we stopped the bus. When they all were warming up and stuff, and they all came to the line ready to run. Only one of them had spikes on, and I said, "What are you doing? This is a race. You're supposed to treat this like it's a race."
Like a race, yeah.
And I said, "Go get your spikes on. You got 5 minutes." They all go run back. They're steaming at me. They're so mad. But they go back to their to the bus. They get their spikes on. They come back out there. Like I said, all but one of them run a PR. And that one that didn't run the PR had been injured. And it was a really good day. And they were kind of glad they did it afterwards, but they were still really mad. But I never remember getting back on the bus and thinking that was such a Westbrook thing to do.
As you're sitting here telling me that, I was thinking, well, this sounds good. I think I would have done that too.
Yeah, right. So,
well, did their attitude change knowing that they ran PRs as you went further up the road?
They did. They were in reflection. They were like, yeah, I guess it's good that we did that because it was good that we got that out. So can you think of something that was just crazier that you did over the years that you had a team do or somebody do? Or
I've stopped and had hill workouts when I just saw a hill over there that looked good, and took teams to, from coaching in Georgia, and we went to Florida for invitationals down there, or even South Georgia.
Yeah.
And we'd pass roads, the land on the side, and there'd be a hill going way up there. And I said, look over there, guys. Yeah. And they'd say, oh, no. We'd pulling over, parking. We could get access to the hill, and they'd do 10 repeats or so. A lot of times that was after the race. We wouldn't want to do it before the race. Yeah. But they came to expect it. So when he pointed the hill, a lot of times I would just point to it and drive right on by, and they'd go, oh, be so glad. But they always did well. They did well on the hill, mainly because it was just a new place.
Talk about hills. I remember the Andes Nursery Loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Matter of fact, we were doing 3-mile repeats on the Andes Nursery Loop when you pulled me aside. It was before the season had even started. And you pulled me aside my senior year and told me, listen, you got a chance to win the state meet if you'll just buckle down and care a little bit and do it. And sure enough, you were right. I remember that day.
Yeah, because you were coming up those hills. You were getting to the top, but there wasn't a whole lot of effort involved.
Yeah?
Yeah, you had a good stride. Arms were good, which is good.
Yeah.
You can do that on hills with good form, and still it'll be to your advantage. But if you start pushing it a little bit with that good form, which you were not doing, then the benefits may be doubled, because when you get to the top of the hill, you're breathing kind of hard.
Yeah.
So after that, you started doing that.
Yeah.
and finished it up pretty well.
Well, I remember our practice one time when I was whining.
No.
Yeah. I was bent over tying my shoe, and when I came up, you said, "Thompson, why don't you just go home? I mean, just go home. I mean, you don't have to be here. Just go home." And then I'm looking at you like, what are you talking about? And you looked at me and said, "No, don't come back tomorrow, but just go home." And I remember that kind of drove a point home. I think I whined a little bit less than after that. Maybe I didn't cut it out completely, I'm sure. But I was the best runner on the team at the time.
Yeah,
but you were serious. I mean, if you were like, if you don't want to be here, don't be here, right?
Right.
Which we can't get away with these days. It seems, these days it's really hard to just be honest and frank with athletes.
That's true, and I see that when I'm helping with the Tryon team, and I remember that incident. And even as I was telling you that, I was really hoping you weren't going to go. And even as I was hoping that, I kept adding on to it, like, and don't come back, like a final nail.
Yeah.
And maybe that would convince him to keep on going with this work. And it worked out.
And it worked out.
It did. And when I saw it working out, I went, oh, boy, I got through that. But like with this team now, if I did that with their top runner, if I was enough in charge to do that, he'd just probably walk off and never come back.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, well, I just blew that one.
Yeah. And that's if you didn't get a lawsuit for talking like that these days.
So I just have to approach it a little differently, or just pull him out of the workout for a few repeats, hoping he'll ask why he's over here. And I say, well, you're wasting your time out there. You're not doing it. So I don't want other people to be that bad in their workout. So if they don't see you doing it, maybe they'll do better. Then they'll get back in there and do it.
I've done some of those similar things recently.
Coaching is a constant psychological investigation into people.
Yeah, it is.
Every day.
Yeah.
And one day that may work, and the next day the same thing may destroy it all.
Yeah.
And
well, do you remember I was doing a workout by myself one time? And I don't remember why my mother was out there at this workout, but she was. And I was doing 800 repeats, but you didn't tell me what the workout was. So you told me, get on the line. I want you to do an 800. I want you to run it hard. And I don't remember exactly the words you used to say how hard you wanted me to run, but it was hard. And like I ran like 208 or 206 or something pretty fast.
yeah, probably right under race pace.
And then you
Right over race pace.
yeah, and then you were still like, just rest for a minute. And then you were like, okay, get on the line and do another one. I had no idea how many of these I was going to do. And I kept getting slower. Every time I ran one, I got slower. And I finally got to the point where I was running them. I think I ran one in like 222 or 224 or something. And I stopped. I got at the end of that run. I turned around and I looked at you and I said, "What do you want from me? Like, I'm not doing myself any good at this point. What do you want?" And I remember you didn't say hardly anything. And then you just said, "All right, back on the line." And you made me so mad that day that I ran that next one faster than I had run the one before it. And I got through and you just said, "Okay, that's it. Go ahead and cool down and we're done."
Yeah.
Do you remember that day?
Yeah. That was a breaking point workout.
Well, you broke me.
800s are good to use because you may feel really bad. If you run it right, you're going to feel stressed when you get through, but you recover pretty quick. Rather than doing a mile, you recover a lot longer, and the workout would be longer.
Yeah.
400 just relies too much on innate speed. The 800 would require a modicum of endurance and stamina plus the speed. And it was to get a person to the point where they just not going to do it again. They just, I can't do it. That's usually what they say. I can't do it, not I won't do it. Is I can't do it, which actually means the same thing.
Yeah.
So when did you get them over that bridge of I can't or won't, And usually they're going to run worse and just, that's it. They may quit the team. They may never come back. They might come back the next day, or they run better and everything's brighter from there on out.
Yeah.
And
well,
usually they know how that feels. The muscle pattern in their body knows they've had to push it at the very end, and then the workout was over. Then they can relate to that in a race and push it no matter how. That guy's ahead of me by 50 yards, but he didn't do those 800s like I did.
Yeah.
So you push it, and you might catch him before the finish line, and probably will.
Well, it apparently worked. So one of the, turning back to some of the stuff that you've done, one of the coolest things that I remember you doing was the transcontinental race that you did. What year was that?
1972.
72. Oh, was it that long ago?
Yeah.
Wow. 1972. So, and you ran across the country, all the way across the country, right?
Yeah, west to east, Los Angeles, Huntington Beach, which is outside of Los Angeles,
Yeah.
to New York, Central Park.
Wow. And how long did that take?
About 30 days, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's what I was convinced about the first, second, third day into it. This is crazy.
Yeah.
But it was fun. But it was hard.
And you finished, I think, third? in that
Third,
race?
first Masters, third overall.
Wow. And of course, you mentioned the Vol State 500K race that you've run a few times. And you in this race, it's just you just carry with you whatever you've got, and that's it. You don't have a crew supporting you. It's just 315 miles.
It has two divisions. You can be crewed, where like a family or somebody's riding along in their car or meeting you up every mile or 5 miles or whatever, giving you aid. So that's crewed. Or you can just be out there with nobody with you or thinking about you or care about you. And if you get it, if you want anything to drink or eat, you got to have it with you or find it, or find the roadkill on the road. And that's, to me, that's the real race.
Yeah.
There's no,
and that's the screwed division.
There's no division like the crewed winner or the assisted winner. It's just all together.
Yeah.
You just pick the one you want.
Yeah.
And I picked the screwed
division. Yeah.
Division compared to the crewed division. Screwed from the name, the race director.
Yeah.
Moniker for that division.
So, and you would just sleep on the side of the road?
Yep. Carry a small backpack.
Yeah.
Very small. And it's got another shirt in it, another pair of shorts, two more pair of socks, no other shoes, a rain top, no complete suit, just the top. And the cap will hang on it or be in there. They'll use at times. And a water bottle and lubricant, Vaseline or something of that sort.
Yeah, I can see that being
if
important.
any blisters happen.
Yeah.
And a little razor blade in case my feet swell up and whatever, and I have to cut slices into shoes to relieve the pressure, though I've never had to do that. But a lot of runners.
Well, you almost had to do it one year, though.
Yeah.
Because you started, it starts in Missouri?
Yep.
And
actually, yeah.
You walk across the bridge and then start.
You get on a boat. You get
Okay.
up on the banks in Missouri, run down the hill to the boat, get on, then go across the Mississippi and get in.
Okay.
In Kentucky, and then run that little finger part of Kentucky. Then boom, you're in Tennessee, and then the rest of it ends in Georgia.
And so one year you were in a hotel, I think, the night before, and you like stubbed your toe or something.
Yeah.
And
Makes me hurt to think about it.
Right.
Yep.
So, and you decided You were going to go ahead and go on with the race anyway, right? And what did you find out afterwards?
That my toe was broken. I had to cut the toe area out so it wouldn't be hitting up against the shoe, top, bottom, or side. So I was running with 2 good pair of shoes, running shoes, and one of them had no covering over the big toe. So
and you finished that race.
Yeah, and then the problem was every once in a while I'd get rocks in there and grass and whatever. I'd have to stop, take the shoe off, clean it out, and put it back in there. Oh. And it hurt putting my foot back in there because the toe was swollen.
Oh.
But
wow, that's crazy. Mm-mm. So you've also done some unofficial things too. Like I know you ran the length of the state of Georgia. You've run some other states too, right?
Well, I run basically Georgia, across the Panhandle in Florida.
Okay.
From east to west, west to east.
Okay.
Finishing in Jacksonville Beach.
Okay.
Run across the Grand Canyon.
Have you done
North
that?
Rim to South Rim.
Okay.
That's all I can really think of. Ran parts of the Parkway. What's the name of the Parkway?
Blue Ridge Parkway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not all of it together, even though I still want to do that.
Yeah. That'd be a cool trip.
I've run the coast of Georgia, South Carolina, down to Florida.
And I think I remember you telling me a story that when you were running Georgia, you were up here, not too far from here somewhere, and you took like an electrolyte pill or something, and then you realized you didn't have any water. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, I was running down basically 41 down through Georgia.
Yeah.
And I was still up in this area, and I popped an electrolyte capsule.
Yeah.
And it's got like celluloid that's supposed to digest and melt pretty quick. They don't believe that because it didn't do it. It got hung in the back of my throat, and I couldn't hardly breathe, much less swallow.
Yeah.
It just wasn't going anywhere. And I didn't have any fluid, any water. I don't know what I was thinking that I could. Well, I had taken them before like that because of enough moisture in my mouth, I could just swallow it. Even though they recommend to take it with water or fluid.
Yeah.
So better follow the recommendations because I didn't. But I was seriously thinking I might just suffocate myself here. I could feel my heart rate getting faster. I was getting lightheaded. And then I was getting dizzy, and I think I went around a curve, stumbling along, and there was a building up ahead of me. And I figured if I could make it there, I was hoping it was a store because it looked could be a store.
Yeah.
Or it could be just a house or maybe combined. And I got there, and it was all boarded up and closed. But there was I went around thinking it might be a faucet, but there was like people will cut out a half of a barrel,
Yeah.
and turn it sideways and use it for a water trough for
animals
or horses or something. One of those was behind it, and a little water was in it, dripping down off the top, I guess.
Wow.
And a lot of it had rust in it. But I needed
You had to have something.
See, well, rust has iron in it. Maybe that'll help me. So I just scooped it up and tried to clean it out and swallowed enough to finally that thing. I could feel it, like where your collarbone comes together.
Yeah.
Straight back into your throat. I could feel it down that deep, but it was not going any further.
Yeah.
And I kept drinking enough, and I'd hold my head up, try to straighten my throat out, and finally I felt it move, and then it finally went on down. And I felt so much better because I knew I wasn't going to die right there behind that store. Nobody ever find me. And
Wow.
I was so weak after that I thought the carryover, something was wrong.
Yeah.
That it felt like work just to pick my foot up and put it forward, and my shoulders felt weak. But after walking a little bit, I guess the circulation improved again, and oxygen got where it needed, and I felt better. Started jogging. I was okay.
Wow.
But I wouldn't suggest taking one of those. In fact, I quit taking those altogether.
That was enough.
With water or anything, I found something else. I just went back to Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is actually a good drink to use out there.
While you are working hard to keep your body in shape physically, the music you listen to while you run can help keep you in shape spiritually. We have partnered with J Radio to put together a group of running playlists by Mitchell, Lane, Holly, me, and others that you hear on the Run Club podcast. Plus, you can listen to a playlist put together by members of Run Club just like you. Check out the whole station of Run for God playlists now at jradio.com and in the J Radio app.
All right, we're back, and every week I share a reason why running and or walking is so awesome. And this is the time that I normally do that. Well, what do you think is the best reason to be a runner and or a walker?
You're talking to me now, right?
Yeah.
Well, for one thing, you don't have to depend on anything else.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid wanting to go out and play baseball, basketball, all kind. I always had to find somebody to play it with, or a group.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they were just doing other stuff. And I always, in the back of my mind, would like to have something that I wouldn't have to try to find somebody to do it with. And I wasn't really thinking about individual sports or team sports. I was just a kid with activity.
Mm-hmm.
But as I grew, got older, I still had that notion in my head to have something that I wouldn't have to depend on other stuff in order for me to do it. I wouldn't have to find a golf course. I wouldn't have to find the tennis court. I wouldn't have to have other people to play a basketball game.
Yeah.
And running fits that, and it's been great.
Yeah.
And
that's a good point.
And I think seems like a lot of Europeans fit into that thing, especially in the inland countries of Europe. And I don't know why. Germany, Czechoslovakia, a lot of those places. A lot of people tend to gravitate toward individual activities and sports rather than team sports at an early age. So they grow up having that individual activity without dependency on other stuff. So America maybe doesn't, kind of tends toward team sports more or less.
Yeah, yeah. Other than soccer's big over there, I guess. Yeah. But yeah. Well, I don't know. Do you pay attention to the professional running scene these days?
Off and on.
Did you see what happened yesterday?
No.
Kelvin Kiptum just set the world record in the marathon.
I did see a little blurb on that, but I didn't get into the reading of it.
He's only 35 seconds away from breaking 2 hours.
Yeah.
And, Mitchell and I
Which is a little faster than my marathon these days.
Yeah, a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Just a little. Mitchell and I have debated back and forth, how long is it going to be before the 2 hour barrier is broken? And I have always said, I think that Eliud Kipchoge was a little bit of an outlier, and that I thought it was going to be a long time before it gets broken. Well, here comes Kelvin. This is only his third marathon, and he's 35 seconds away from breaking 2 hours. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is.
And he always runs the second half faster than the first half. I don't know how fast he ran the second half, but I didn't see his split. But I actually, in order to watch this race, it wasn't on a regular channel that I get. And so, but you could see it on the news channel from out of Chicago. So I put that up on my TV, and then I set my phone up to record what was on the TV.
Yeah.
I wanted to see, I had this feeling I needed to see it, and sure enough, he winds up breaking the record. So I was glad that I did that. So what do you think? Do you have somebody this year that you think is the most impressive athlete of the year? Is there any performances that
No, because the one thing I haven't kept up with that closely.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. What about, next year we got the Olympics coming back. Do you see anything interesting happening there, or is that another thing you're not necessarily following really closely?
Not at this time, but I will as it gets closer.
Yeah.
And I usually check in to see which countries are going to, first thing I check, which countries will probably dominate the distance events.
Yeah.
Which more people pick an African nation to do that.
Yeah.
But then they may be, and probably will be correct, but I always look for those exceptions to that.
Yeah.
A guy coming out of Portugal or something that nobody's ever heard of.
Yeah.
And then knocks off the 10K. I look for those things. Upsets.
That's fun to try to predict. That's cool. Here's a question for you. I remember I was in Sturgis, South Dakota one time, and I went out for a run one morning, and I literally almost ran into a deer. Like a deer was coming down out of the woods as I was going across a bridge, and we met, and like closer than me to you before the deer saw me and turned around and went back the other way. Have you ever had any kind of wildlife encounters that you remember like that?
Funny you should ask. On the Blue Ridge Parkway, I was we had the distance running camp at Brevard.
Yeah.
And I would sneak away and go up on the Blue Ridge Parkway like in the early morning before things could really get going at camp, and run about 12 miles or so, I think it was, on the Blue Ridge Parkway out and back. So here I was up there, and early morning, and it was a little bit foggy as I got higher elevation. I mean, you can still see way ahead, but just a lot of mist in the air. So I'm running along, and nobody up there, no cars, it's real quiet. And this is really great. And I just go around the curve, and there's a deer up there in front, and it's facing the other way, the way I'm running. He's on the right side of the road. And I'm getting closer, waiting for it. Okay, he's going to skitter away any minute. I'm getting closer. He's still there. I'm getting closer. He's still there. And I said, well, heck, I'm finally going to, if I quieten my footsteps and getting up, so slap it on the butt.
Oh.
And that deer takes off and goes about 3 steps and turns left at a 90-degree angle and up that hill so fast. I said, good grief, I didn't know they could move that fast. I mean, it was going click, 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 boom. And
oh my goodness.
I thought that, that'd probably never happen again, being so close that. And he must have been really hungry, munching on that grass beside the road. And it's real short grass, had been mowed a little bit, probably easy to get, because he was so engrossed in that he didn't hear me or smell me or anything.
Yeah.
But boom. I wonder what he got back and told his family when.
I'm sure that was a great conversation. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. Well, I mentioned a few stories from back in my high school days. Is there one that you remember, a story? You know what story I remember? It just came to mind. I remember we used to do these things called guts.
Yeah.
And guts was, I'll explain that the guts were, you would do, I don't know, it was 10 or 15, 20, I don't know how many.
10 push-ups on that end.
10 push-ups on one end. You'd run.
20 sit-ups on the other end.
Yeah, and you'd run back and forth till you got tired.
Yeah. And the distance between is whatever I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Nice little workout.
Yeah. But there was
and boring for the person doing it. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
So what about it? You enjoy those?
Well, I think I only did them once, but I remember you telling a story about one time. There was a couple of guys in Florida that something happened after you told them to get started, right? Do you remember this?
I remember a situation in Florida, if it's the one you're thinking about.
You told them to get started, and then you left and forgot about them.
But yeah, we were out at the track, and they were doing in the grass, actually on the outside part of the track, and then about 15, 20 feet was a fence, and then that strip of grass in there is where they would do it, and had to go from the gate up to where the fence made a left turn, which was over 100 yards, like 125 yards or so.
Yeah.
And theoretically, the harder you run, the earlier I'll stop you.
Right.
And then you shorter. But they were doing pretty good. And then some kid came out and needed something that I had of his in the office. So I said, okay, they're good. I'll go. We'll go down. I went over there and I got in the office, found what he needed, and found some other stuff, and kind of forgot that I was supposed to be back out there with those guys. A few minutes, and then another kid came in and said, "How long are I forget their names? How long are they going to be out there?" And I said, "Oh, a little while longer." I said, like I knew all along how much longer. I guess I'll go out and check on them. I didn't tell them I forgot about it. But they were going hard. They were still going hard because they knew they might not can see me, but I could probably always see them.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'd be in another field or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And I never did tell them that. I never did tell them that I forgot about them. But it still wasn't. It was under an hour.
Yeah.
They were doing that. Wasn't the longest ever, but it was probably second place.
I remember the kids on the team not doing a run. I remember one day in particular where it was my sophomore year, and the entire team hid behind the gym. We were supposed to be out running 6 miles. And it was me and Randy Ashley. He was a freshman at the time. We were the only two that ran that day. Did you know that happened?
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, I wasn't bold enough to not run.
Maybe you were smarter.
Or maybe I was smarter or whatever it was, but I never wanted to not do whatever the workout was. And I see that today. I see kids all the time today just doing everything they can do to try to get out of a run or a workout. True. And so is that unusual to have kids that don't want to cut workouts short and things, or is that?
No, that's probably.
Has that changed over the years?
I think it's more so now though than then.
Yeah.
Because it seems like some kids today, if they're just involved in the activity, that's enough. I don't need to be involved and doing the best I can every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to do that. I just want to be on the team. Yeah, he's a cross-country runner. Yeah, he's whatever. And they know I'm involved, and I get to wear the jersey, and all that stuff. But, I don't want to run that 6 miles hard. No, I don't want to do that. And the coach, I'll still be okay on the team if I don't do it. So
yeah,
it seems to be a lack of dedication.
Yeah.
At least from the experiences I've had here lately.
Well, I've seen some of that myself. Well, I'm going to leave you with a trivia question for this week, and I'm going to set it up this way. And I don't know if you remember this. Back, I think it was 1981.
I won't remember that. Go ahead.
We had a trivia contest on the cross-country team. You gave us all this, I think it was 2 or 3 sheets of trivia questions, and we were supposed to write down the trivia answers, turn them back in, and the person who answered the most questions was going to get a prize. And there was one question that I think stumped everybody. And I don't remember exactly how it was worded, but the answer to the question I remember the answer was a person none of us knew, and none of us could come up with the answer. And I remember everybody was convinced because it was, and this is the way I phrased the question: who is the Native American who had the highest finish for an American at the Olympic 10,000 meters prior to Billy Mills' gold medal in 1964? And for whatever reason, the entire team was convinced it was some guy named Longboat.
Thomas Longboat.
But that's not what the answer was. And do you remember that question? You don't say the answer, because this is our trivia question for the week. So
Yeah, I remember that question.
this is probably the hardest trivia question we've ever had on this podcast. So if you can answer that question, if somebody answers that, the first person that answers it correctly gets a $20 gift card in the Run for God store.
Ooh.
So if you know the answer to that question, send it to dean@runforgod.com. And if you're the first person, you'll win that prize. But I remember now it's a lot easier to find the answer to that question these days than it was back then.
Yeah.
But still, that's a hard one to find. So if you know that one, you're pretty awesome. All right, I'm going to leave you with a motivational thought of the week. Do you have what's your favorite quote, running quote? You got one?
I used to have one that I would respond to when people ask me that, and I haven't done it so long.
You don't remember?
I can't remember. It was very simple.
I remember you used to like the one, the race is not always to the swift, but to those who keep on running.
Yeah, that's true. I use that a lot.
Yeah, I like that one.
But I'm at a loss right now.
Well,
It was like something almost like 3 or 4 words.
well, you can keep that one in mind. The race is not always to the swift, but to those who keep on running. It's all about staying in the game, right?
Yeah, and that applies to life itself.
It does. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I so appreciate you making the drive over to come over here and share with us. And you've definitely had some experiences.
It's been good. It's been good to be here.
And you're not done yet. I'm sure there'll be some interesting thing happen in the next year.
I hope I'm not done.
No. Well, you gotta outlast those other 4 guys. So
That's true.
You don't have any choice.
I've been thinking, trying to find their address
Yeah.
and sending them a letter bomb. But I figured, no, they'd probably get traced back to me.
Yeah. You probably don't
Better not want to do that.
Yeah. Probably try something different. You'll just have to live to 120 and keep running, I guess.
I'm surprised I was even that high on the list.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That's incredible. There's 4 guys that have run every day for over 50 years in the world. And there's one guy that has a retired streak, I think Ron Hill.
Ron Hill.
Ran 52 years.
Guy from England.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I think those are the only 5 guys that have ever done it. I think you're going to be the 6th guy in the history of the world. And that's a pretty awesome accomplishment. So congratulations. Well, I shouldn't say that until it happens, because you never know what's going to happen.
That's true.
But I have faith, and that it'll happen. All right. Thank you so much. And if you're tuning in, thanks again. Remember to like and share this podcast. Remember, we're trying to get to 100,000 downloads by the end of this year. So you got to get this out, because we got to get there. So I have faith in you. I know you will. And until next week, may God bless every step of every run and or walk. Go out there and shine your light.
For more information about the Run for God ministry, go to runforgod.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There's nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.